So, Eran, thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to India Global Business. I'm very, very delighted to have this conversation with you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, Eran, you are the CEO of Dataloop, and we've heard a lot about Dataloop and its engagement with India. But before we begin on that and start the discussion on that, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your company.
Yes, sure. So, Dataloop, in essence, Dataloop is, if we look at the future, we're talking about the future of AI is the future of automation, of human work automation. And this automation is being driven by data. That means that if we take an example on self-driving cars, a very common example everybody's talking about, you have the car driving by itself, but the car learns from people. So the car doesn't really understand what other cars are or what pedestrians or what the traffic lights look like. It's actually people sitting on car data and marking or labeling these pieces and gradually building that way the car's brain. Now, just for you to get a feel on a self-driving car company operation, there will be probably a few thousands of people doing that type of labeling constantly. And what Dataloop is doing is that we have the platform to manage these vast amounts of data, to supply the tools for the labeling, and to supply the capabilities to manage the human workflows, the tasks. And on top of all of that, we combine it with the algorithms to do a lot of automation. And that's what our platform is doing. You can think about it kind of an AI cloud platform that connects humans and machines together.
Eran, thank you for that. There's a lot going on about AI at the moment, particularly with COVID. I think it's sort of almost accelerated the growth of AI as well. People are, I mean, this is my impression. Please feel free to correct me, that people seem more sort of open to the idea of AI and its implementation. So I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about, the new opportunities that are coming up for AI in implementing sort of.
Yes, so I think COVID have accelerated everything like years ahead. If you think about it, it starts with retail. We can't go to malls. We can't go to shopping centers. Suddenly, everybody has to go to be online. For the first time, I got a call from my mom saying, "How do I order online? Never done that before, but I need to do it now." And I said, if my mom wants to order online, that means that the real change has came. And if you think about it, our physical brick and mortar experience in the retail world is very disconnected from our digital experience, right? And what happens is that the physical experience has a lot of friction. We don't really know where to go and look for the product we're after. We don't really enjoy standing up in line or waiting in the cashier. And the whole, I would say, self-checkout, just like self-driving cars are bringing change to our transportation, self-checkout will bring the change to our e-commerce. And what happens today is that most of the brick-and-mortar businesses, the malls and the shops, they are kind of out of business. And there is a big question, will they ever return? Now, they probably will return because they offer an experience that isn't much more than just getting the product. But on the other hand, the competition will be much more tougher, and we want the experience to be frictionless. So we expect a lot of technology goes into the retail sector. On the same time, suddenly we see how the health system, how much is it vulnerable when it comes to workforce availability. So, of course, everybody wants to enjoy from healthcare automation or healthcare capabilities. And in Dataloops, I would say first quarters of COVID, we actually saw that jump in medical applications. So I would say all around us, it would be fair to say that we are entering, I would call it a mass digital adoptions of real businesses rather than tech businesses. And that adoption is naturally being attached to AI, because if you want to identify a product or if you want to identify a person, or everything digitally you want to do will eventually involves AI in some way. And we're starting to see the opportunity, we're starting to see the leap. And I think that especially on the retail side, the retail industry now is in a big question or crossroad. I tend to imagine that as just like the newspaper industry didn't understand that Google and Facebook is about to destroy its business, I think the same way retail industry today should understand the threat it is facing. It is not protected by the walls of the mall, to sort of say. And I see already signs, you know, if you take a look on Walmart, if you take a look on Starbucks or Procter and Gamble, you already see consumer retail companies that are adopting much faster than the old newspaper industry. But yet to see, right, how things will evolve. But exciting times nonetheless. Innovation is the only game in town.
That's really interesting, because I remember reading about in India this started happening with when the COVID 19 lockdown happened and India went into full on lockdown for several months. A lot of the smaller players in the medium industries went online and started in going on to e-commerce. And there's been a lot of sort of interest in India now in terms of going digital and moving towards technology. And speaking of India, I know for a fact that Dataloop has now started expanding. You recently got funding from 8 angel investors from India. That's quite a feat. So I'm really interested in knowing what your plans for the Indian market are, and what sort of compelled you to look into India. Was this growth in digitalization that was one of the inspiring factors?
Yeah, I think first we're working today, with significant amount of Indian companies, and I think that India is of course, I never been in India, and that I'm going to fix that. I was supposed to be, but COVID ruined my plans. I'm going to fix that. But I would say that India has a unique place in the world today when it comes to AI. And we believe in, like, the high level, we believe that going forward, India will be a central place on AI, or at least the opportunity for India to become a central global spot on AI. And why? There are three things that kind of intersect with when it comes to AI in India. The first is that if you remember the workers I was talking, the people that are doing the labeling, right? India is the only place where you can have in the same building cost-effective workers that are doing the labeling, at the same time where you have top tech talent sitting with them and developing the algorithms and the models. And whether this tech talent is local, coming from IIT and other institutions, or coming from remote through Silicon Valley, etc., you get, because India also has a very rich ecosystem of existing enterprises that have presence in India. At my times at Intel, we worked with Indian sites all the time. So that if you combine the talent and the workers, you get, I would say, something that's really not common. In Israel, for example, we have the tech talent, but we can't afford the workers. The same goes for the US, the same goes for Europe, the same goes for Australia or Japan. Another place in the world is like that, which is China. China have very strong tech talent, and China has the ability to have on the same building the talent and the labor force. But then comes the culture. China is very centric towards the internal, right? And it's not open to the world, whether it's the language, whether it's the market that is focused inside. While India is very global in its nature, whether here we are now speaking in English and doing it in a very comfortable way. And that means that if we add culture and communication to the equation as the third point of this triangle, I think that India has the potential to become, I would say, a global top 3 or 4 or 5 global leading in AI industry. And we bet that it will be successful. And we went to that round, and Saket Agwal from Onivation really helped us, and we got some big local names from executives from top, as I said, India has them, top global tech leads in executives position. So we were very excited to have this opportunity, and that's why we went to that road, and we hope to continue and enjoy the mutual growth.
And are there any particular sectors you're looking to target, Iran, when you go into India?
Yes, yes. So I would say the leading sector today in the world of AI is self-driving cars. That I would say, no doubt about that. And of course, self-driving car is an industry that evolving. I would say slower than expected or advertised, but still evolving, and we will see already seeing the start of self-driving technology around us. So self-driving cars for sure, or autonomous machines, because once you know how to drive a car, why won't you drive a robot to do deliveries, right? It's kind of working together. So autonomous machines is kind of the broader category. And the next, right next to that, we just talked about the retail revolution, right? Or the retail disruption phase that happens without nobody actually notifying anyone. And that's again a very significant sector which we see valuable. And I would say we see the opportunity in medical, yet we haven't worked with Indian companies on medical. But we see the opportunity in medical exactly because if you think about it, the price I need medical data is very expensive, right? Analyzing an MRI, I can do that, you can't do that. We have to be a doctor to do that. And today, the US price, if you check the US price of analyzing MRI is about, just label a single MRI, you need a lot of them, is about $2,000, 2,000 USD dollars. So naturally, there is opportunity here on the, I would say, expertise of having doctors in India analyzing remotely. Remote is the new, it's the age of the remote, right? Remotely analyze medical samples and make it much more cost effective.
You know, that's very interesting. I was thinking as you were talking about all the sectors that you're planning to engage in, and it just occurred to me because you talked about data and healthcare, and it just occurred to me that all the three sectors that you mentioned, how crucial data is to that. And sort of looking through this data and sorting through this data, and I'm assuming this is where AI will also play a very key role. And before we had this discussion, actually, I was doing a bit of reading, and it came across some very interesting statistics. Now, some research which was conducted recently said that nearly 96% of Indian companies still struggle with proper data labeling when they attempt to implement AI, whether this is for healthcare or autonomous machines, like you mentioned, or any other sector. And I was wondering, what are your thoughts on that?
Yes, so I think that the AI industry has not internalized fully yet that the data labeling, and when we're saying data labeling, it's kind of minimizing the issue. The data labeling is probably the number one challenge in AI, and I'm not saying it lightly. If you can imagine the algorithm of a self-driving car, or at least the basic of it, the safety algorithm is, if you see danger, then stop, right? Very simple definition. Now, the stop part is working perfect, 100%. You just tell the computer to stop the car, then it stops. So the only barrier between having a self-driving car out there from safety reasons is the ability to identify danger, whether for myself or for the people around me. And identifying danger, why does it take, like, think about it, I think self-driving cars are running for almost a decade now. Why is it so difficult to define what the danger is? And that's where data labeling comes in place. If you take a look on autonomous cars instructions, labeling instructions, most people will imagine it as, let's mark a people or a car, right, or a traffic light. We're talking about hundreds of pages of documents, setting the different properties and qualities and cases in order for the AI to really understand what the danger is, because you don't want to go on the highway and suddenly the car stops because it's decided that it's in. And by the way, you can YouTube on Tesla latest releases. People are kind of uploading many funny videos where Tesla sees danger that it's not there. It's like a McDonald's sign or something like that, but it's sure it's a stop sign and it won't continue. These type of things, these type of edge cases, they are common to all AI. And while they make us kind of laugh on when we watch it on YouTube while you're in the car and the car won't move because it convinced it see a pedestrian in front of it, then I guess it becomes less funny. And if you think about what the challenge is defining the language which we humans can communicate danger. Because if you and me will see danger on the road, we'll probably immediately identify it. Like in a sub-second, we'll agree it's danger. But how we translate this danger, what we're doing, what's going on in our brain when we're thinking danger? Because we don't now start to think, this is an animal, the car will crash into it. No, it's kind of our brain automatically saying, stop, something bad happens. And that 200 milliseconds of magical 200 milliseconds of stop is being translated to many properties and many data labeling properties, which makes the whole industry or the whole problem as a holistic problem extremely complex. Now, what happens if you do it on MRIs for tumors or bones? What happens when you need to identify a product out of 3,000 products, right? You don't want to go out of the shop and say, wait a minute, I bought Coca-Cola, why do I have billing on cleaning materials, right? And that's the labeling challenge. So that 96% you're mentioning, I'm not surprised by it. And that's exactly what we're here for, to make that 96 a lower number.
I was actually going to ask you that, so I'm going to take that opportunity to ask you that how would Dataloop sort of address it? And I'm aware that you obviously can't tell us your trade secrets, but in layman's terms, what would be the best way?
Yes, in layman. I hope I will tell you, and then if I'm saying too much, then I will get the criticism internally later. Start with the basic things. As well as it sounds, let's start with the basic things. We give you state-of-the-art tools. We utilize your GPUs on your computers. That means that we count milliseconds and clicks and making sure that you get the fastest work done on our tooling. And imagine that you have 1,000 or 2,000 people working. If we save 10 minutes of their time every day, that numbers are adding up, 10 hours. And actually, in Dataloop, what we're doing with super tooling and algorithmic enhancements, a lot of automation, like what in Photoshop, we can actually showing that we're saving a lot of time. But it's a bit more than that. We're actually able to identify errors. We're able to identify, think about us as people. Worker is now getting tired and starting doing mistakes. We're able to identify it and alerting and saying, get up, go grab a cup of coffee or something. And we already see these patterns and see connections between the data errors and how they manifest eventually on the models. If I'll go to one step deeper, right? If you can imagine what Photoshop in the browser would look like, if I'll go one step deeper, we're actually a category builders. I'm kind of saying it labeling because it's usually people have easier time to understand that. But actually, we are inventing a language which, on one hand, you and I can describe what a danger is, right? And on the other hand, that description can now be translated to labeling instructions, which in turn can be understood by machines. So we see the labeling challenge as a communication challenge between humans and machines.
That's such a fascinating. Thank you for breaking down that. By the way, I found that really easy to follow because I'm not a tech expert at all. So a lot of the times when I hear tech experts such as yourself speak, I don't really follow because it's like they're talking in a completely different language. So thank you for breaking that down and simplifying that for me. And it's such a fascinating concept of just sort of bridging this communication gap between machines and humans. Eran, before I go to my last question, I have to ask because there's been a lot of concerns that were flagged up as you know, technology and digitalization and application of AI increases day by day, there are concerns being flagged up about security, data security, securing even AI, basically. So, what are your thoughts on that? Is that something? Is it possible to do that? Is the threat real, and how severe is that threat?
Yes, yes. I think that, with every opportunity there is a risk, and there are significant risks here. If to name a few, then naturally the one that you're talking about, which is these machines are not smart, right? The smart parts are coming from humans, so they don't tell right from wrong, right? Just like Tesla will stop when it sees a McDonald's sign, it will continue when or we have the Uber case where there was a woman that on a bicycle and she had a shopping bag, right? It will all be like kind of exotic scenario, and the car would just continue and run over it, and she died. And that will happen all over the place, where we have to release the AI into the wild, but then we have to run after that and make sure that it's just like a child, right? Just like when you're releasing a child. So you're running after that. On one hand, you want to give them the freedom to learn. But on the other hand, you don't want them to either help himself or help others as a consequence. And that's the same approach would be applied to AI. On one hand, you want to release it out for it to learn the world and help us and bring to productiveness. On the other hand, anyone just sending an AI to mass scale population is just like sending a child to a road. You don't do that, it wouldn't end well. And the real secret here is just how you monitor your AI or combine it, and it kind of goes to labeling, but not labeling, monitoring. Just think about how you would take your child on the road. This is exactly the data labeler is the parent, and the child is the AI. And as you get more confidence, and you see that the AI is maturing, and you can trust it actually, you set it free. And it's a gradual process. By the way, a fair estimation would be for simple to medium AI capability, it's like 4 to 5 years process. So it's actually like raising a child. The other part that you kind of mentioned is there are other dangers like bias, right? And we already seen cases where AI is biasing against people of color, biasing against gender, biasing against many things. And by the way, bias exists in AI by definition. That means that we don't have to do anything to get bias. We just have to build an AI and it's already biased. Now we have to work and to create something that we consider fair. And then we go to questions that are very complicated questions. What fair is, right? And if I go 50 years back, probably nobody would argue, nobody would question AI because discriminating on color is something that you see around and that's legal and everything is okay. So our definition of fair and wrong and right is changing as time goes by. And people without masks was totally normal a year ago. And now if you see people without masks, it makes you feel uncomfortable, right? They're doing something wrong. So the definition of appropriate has changed, just a simple thing of mask wearing. These are all definitions we have as people. These are not definitions machines can understand because we perceive the world the way it is. So the bias of what is good and wrong and how we control it and how we monitor it is extremely challenging. And the problem with bias, by the way, is that it takes time to see it because you need to see the effects. Suddenly you will see that less women are being accepted to some kind of job, and you will root cause it to some problem with AI that it has bias. Nobody intended it for it to be. And in Dataloop, we give quite attention to that, to these areas. Of course, the last risk, the biggest one of them all, which is the loss of jobs, right? Just like if you think about the agriculture revolution, a lot of people lost their work. 90% of the world population was working on agriculture, on growing food. And suddenly, only 5% of the world, like suddenly it took decades, but we transitioned to 5% of the population growing food, what the rest of us are doing, right? Now, on the long run, that's okay, because people are like, economy is replacing itself. We'll use our time for creativity and supplying others goods and services. But on the short run, if you have a taxi driver, which is 50 or 60 years old, if to face it, they can't reinvent themselves. So what happens with them? It's like the big corporates have just taken the blue collar jobs. And it's like Google stock, or Waymo in that case, is going up, while folks in a downtown city, in the city downtown, either Tel Aviv or Bangalore, are hungry. But it's fair, right? It brings us to that's how the capitalism works. And that challenge is an extreme challenge of taxation, how you tax AI. You tax human workers. That's the basic of our taxation system, is taxing work of humans. Do you start taxing robots? What is a robot? Just a software. Is it a robot? Where's the limit between robot? I'm just writing a normal software. Am I tax-free? Right? You get all these questions that regulators and legislators will have to deal with, and we can already start seeing the early signs of it. So yes, AI will bring, like all progress of humanity, the problem you solve introduce new problems, right? And this what makes life fun, the new problems, because we're bored with the old problems.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, until you actually broke this down for me, I have to say, I didn't realize the problem of ethics being so core to AI or any kind of machine or technology that's being, becoming advanced. Obviously, you read about these things, but you don't realize the crux of the issue until you talk like experts with experts such as yourself. So this has been really a huge learning experience for me, and I'm sure our viewers have enjoyed listening to you talk, Eran. Before we wind down our discussion, I have to squeeze in one last question, because I'm fascinated to know what are your plans for the future in India, because you've talked so much and at such length. It would be great to know what the future holds.
Yes. So Onivation, which is the Indian company that we partner with. By the way, you mentioned earlier on our pre-conversation we talked before about the Israel-India kind of path or channel. Onivation is, I would say, they're on that channel constantly. And I think there are three major areas. The first one is that, as I said, the India labeling industry is live and kicking and likely to grow. And we see the opportunity for partnerships with these companies. The second thing is that if you think about the big corporations, the global corporations, they all have sites in India, and naturally, they because of the mix that I've described before, they contain this fusion of tech and labeling, which is the best customers of Dataloop are people who know how to operate the machine, but also understand the labeling process well. And there are many locations like that in Israel. And of course, the last part is the Indian market, which has many, I would say, companies you probably know without mentioning names, but there are customers already working Dataloop that are global brands that are, and we see them as a direct customers and excited to see the things being developed. I would say globally, the companies are Indian, but they also have headquarters or locations across the world. So these three aspects, and each one of them is a path by itself, and exciting us on its own.
Eran, thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to us today. I'm going to be looking forward to following Dataloop's journey, both in India and various other markets I'm sure you will expand to in time. And I hope that we can catch up once you've firmly established in India in a few months' time. It would be great to see what other exciting projects Dataloop has been up to.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.